then because I was still worshiping with the students in 2006 when we met, and some of the people you mentioned are still my close friends. Olani Chris is with me here at Moikloof. He was our church elder at some point. But thank you for bringing back all those memories. But for those who don't know me, my name is Josh Maroba. I will be speaking to you this afternoon about black tax. Black tax is an emotive subject. A lot of people feel very strongly about it, and there's no consensus, for example, about whether it should be called black tax. There's no consensus about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whether it's something we should do more of or less of. And my aim today is not to achieve consensus. I'm not trying to get us to a point where we agree on what black tax is and how, as society, we should handle it. What I want to do is to share my experience with black tax, one. Two, I want us to share learnings and insights that can help someone who is navigating black text today in 2023. And if my math is right, that someone is the majority of us. I believe that if you are black, chances are, 90% chance that you are navigating black text. And so there's value in us as society, us as Christians, us as young people, though some of us are not young anymore, meeting together, sharing our experiences, and sharing what we've learned so that maybe somewhere in my experience, somewhere in my mistakes, someone can get something. And I also can get something from someone else's learning. So that's what we want to do today. I think I will speak for about 30 minutes and then hand back to our anchor so we can have some Q&A and hopefully a discussion. So with that, I am going to turn off my video and share my screen. I assume you can all see my screen um, at the moment, and you can still hear me. So, as we said, the topic is black tax. We work hard. Some of us are well paid, but many of us are still struggling because that salary sometimes has to achieve the impossible by supporting many people in our immediate and extended family. I will start by sharing my own personal experience with black tax. And I'm going back in time, looking at my father and his family and their experience with black tax. So on the screen, what you see, this is my father. He's the one seated. He's quite old. He's 96 years old. With him are four of his siblings, two ladies, two gents. These are my aunts and uncles. Many of his siblings are not in the picture, but they were from a very large family. So these are not his only siblings. My father was the second born in his family. Um, and he was fortunate in that he was also the first one in the family to earn an income. He had a commercial farm at a very young age, and the farm started to generate while he was in his 20s. His farm started to generate an income, and with that income, he says, and I quote him, his family got to drink tea in the morning for the first time through that income. And I put the siblings on the screen as well because he's quite proud of the fact that with this farm of his, he was also able to educate his siblings. So the two ladies on the screen went one to a teaching college and one to a nursing college through the income that came from this farming enterprise. Um, And like I say, my father was proud of this. He didn't see it as a tax. And when you talk to his siblings, they speak quite fondly of the fact that their brother took care of them and took them through school when he was the first one in the family to earn an income. Unfortunately, though, the story of the farm does not have a happy ending. Um, as you would know, in those days it was illegal for a black person to be farming. So eventually, the authorities of the day did find out that this young man had land and he was using land to farm when blacks were not allowed to own land or to farm. So his farm was closed down. His livestock were killed, and he had to go. His next job was literally to be a tea boy in a hotel, which is quite symbolic of what the system of that day wanted. They didn't want people of his color to thrive. They wanted them to be servants. But the Black Tech story continued. As I say, he speaks with a lot of pride about how he supported his siblings. Um, and and as you go further in time, I've met many people um, in my adult years who say things like, "Ah, I used to stay by your house." So where we stayed in Kwakwa, there were a lot of colleges. So typically teachers' colleges. So a lot of people in the Free State who wanted further education would come to Ekwakwa to study, and many of them lived in at our house. And there was also a theology school there where some of even Adventist pastors studied, and two pastors in particular, Pastor Nhlapu and Pastor Macheti, that I met in my adult years, told me that, yeah, when you were 2 years old, we lived by your house. And this was an extension of that principle that the one who has the means gets to support those who are in need. So that's my father's black tax story. Fast forward, this is me and my two sisters, and we also have our black tax story. I was fortunate. I was fortunate because I was the last born, and therefore I was the a beneficiary more than anything of black tax. My father became unemployed very early into, I think, when I was around 4 years old. My mother passed on, and within a year of my mother passing, my father became unemployed. So for the majority of my childhood, I lived with a single father who had no income. So as you can imagine, times were hard. We were hungry a lot, and we were quite desperately poor, to put it bluntly. Now my sister, who is but my father was a strong believer in education, and he pushed us all, despite not having the means. He pushed us all to get some kind of after school or tertiary education. My eldest sister, the one on your far right, was the first one to finish a university degree, but she was unemployed, so she finished her degree and came back and kind of stayed at home, um, unable to find a job. Um, the sister in the middle also finished her degree. She did psychology. The first one did accounting. She finished her psychology degree, but was able to find a job as a teacher. And so she was the first one in my family to earn an income. I remember quite well. The year was 2000, and her first salary was 1,000 rands a month. Um, But even with that small salary was the first income that my family, anyone in my family, and in many years. So she had no choice but to, as we put it in modern language, to pay black tax. Although I guess at the time we thought she had, she was just supporting her family. And so even when I was later on, when I was at university, doing my undergrad, I had now two sisters. They were both working, both earning an income. And like I say, I was really a beneficiary of black tax. I lived well. By my second year, okay, by my first year, only one sister worked, so I struggled. And like I said, she didn't earn much. By my second year, she had moved to a better job, and my other sister was also working, and they both supported the family. They both lived at home and spent most of their salary on supporting the family, including supporting me, who was a student at Wits University. So I lived well because of black tax, and I was very much a beneficiary. That's why I say. But fast forward a few years, fortunes change. A few years later, my one sister was unemployed again. Um, I was working, so the one on the far right was unemployed again. The one in the middle was still working as a teacher, but a misfortune fell upon her in that in 2007, in April, she got married, but in September, her husband passed away due to cancer. And like any newly married couple, soon after one, they had debts that they had accumulated from the wedding, and then they had gone and gotten a house and gotten cars to start their middle class life, and then the husband passes away. The insurance policy is paid. The money would have been enough to cover those outstanding loans, but if you know black families, you know that she was bullied out of keeping those funds. So the deceased husband's family kept the funds. So she was now left with huge debts, no a reduced income, and no support. And so I became then the one who's financially relatively surviving better off in the family. And so it was my turn, despite having been a beneficiary of black tax up to that point. I became now the one to carry the responsibility. I supported my sister for about a year while she got her life back in order and went back to school. I supported my dad and my other sister until they were both okay. So um, I would say though that overall I was largely a beneficiary of black tax, and so my perception of it may be slightly different from that of someone who for whom black tax was largely a burden. But I think it's worthwhile sharing the story nonetheless. Then later on, the third story I want to share. Later on, I get married. Um, and I meet a lady who has her own story of black tax. My wife, despite me being a last born and therefore a beneficiary of black tax, my wife was the first one in her family, and that's their picture on the left. That's her parents and her siblings. She was the first one in her family to get a job, and her parents did not earn much. Her dad, by the time she finished her degree, her dad was retired. The mother was self-employed, but not you know not doing exceptionally, kind of enough to support the family. So when my wife then became a teacher, um, in the mid 2000s, she was again the first one in the family to earn a decent income, and so they looked up to her. Her siblings were still in high school at the time, and for her, I would say I could see even then black tax was a huge burden. It was tough. to be earning a really small salary, trying to survive, Joburg rent, trying to further her studies, but also having one sibling at university, one sibling at high school, a family that needs help financially. Um, and so I got to see it being a bed. And then we get married, and we have kids. There's our picture from a few years ago on the right hand side of the screen. And our generation is called the sandwich generation because we are like the cheese in the middle of a sandwich. We are supporting the ones before us, and we are supporting the ones after us. We have kids that need to be taken through school, that need to eat, that need to be clothed. But we also have parents that also need to eat, also need to be clothed. That's why we are called the sandwich generation. With my wife, I think there was a need to be more understanding on my part because, like I say, I had a different experience of black tax than her. I had different responsibilities. By the time I got married, I had limited financial responsibilities at home. She had significant financial responsibilities at home. So we had to navigate trying to understand each other's understanding of what needs to be done to help family, um, understand the needs on each side and come to an agreement of how are we going to meet those needs. So all in all, black text is my story right from generations before me till today. I believe that this is true for you as well. Black text is your story. It's the story of your parents' parents. It's the story of your friends. um, and so the question then still remains, what do we do about black tax in 2023? Is it even right to be calling it a tax? Is it justified? And these are the questions I would like to explore, um, especially the bit about just sharing some advice to someone who's navigating black text today. So the definition, dictionary definition, and I know there are many definitions out there. The one I found says black text is the financial burden borne by black people who have achieved a level of success, who provide support to financially to less financially secure family members. The reality of Black people, not only in South Africa, but the rest of Africa, even in outside Africa, we are largely a poor people. And it's not by chance. Generations of colonization, apartheid, um, have subjected us to and our families to poverty. And as a result, many times when a black person, whether it's a black person in Jamaica or a black person in Nigeria or a black person in Eastern Cape, when a black person earns a degree, usually they are the first one in in their family. And sometimes they are the first one in a number of generations in the family to have a degree, to have a job, and to have income. And with that privilege of being the first one, come this burden or this responsibility to support those who are still coming behind you. And so there's differing views on what black tax is, as in there's differing views about whether it's a burden and a negative thing or a responsibility. Some believe it's Ubuntu. It's how humans support each other. Some believe it's I mean, if you look at the screen there, it's what you do because that's what was done for you. You are paying it forward. Some believe I have no way to escape. I have to do it because there's no one else who will feed these people. If I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch my family suffering. You could really group the myriad views out there into two camps. There's a camp that says black tax is a good thing. It's an honor. We shouldn't even be calling it a tax. And then there are those who say black tax is a burden. Our families are abusing us financially. And on that point, I would like to pause here and share a video. I hope I'll be able to. So I'm going to stop sharing this presentation. I'll come back to it. I want to share a video that through which some people share their perceptions of what black tax is. So I'm going to share the sound as well. I hope it plays nicely.
We had to make sacrifices that they didn't understand. You know, nobody sees that our grocery bill was insane. Black tax can be summed up as a duty that the child has to the family. Most of the time, we find that our families give to ensure that we get that degree, and once we get that job, it is payback time.
To me, the term is still foreign. I don't think, to me as an African man, I agree with the word, especially the tax. I'd rather say family responsibility.
We do grow up in communities that are far behind. Sometimes it's actually quite nice to start empowering people in our communities.
If 1, 2, 3 people are giving, through, it means the greater community is gaining. So in order to uplift our people, I'm happy to really do what I can.
Black tax has both negatives and positives. The positive thing for me is ensuring that a nephew gets the much needed education. But on the downside, it means that I personally have to make a lot of sacrifices.
So a lot of people do struggle with that, mainly because the obligation is engraved within us, like deep mentally. It has definitely gone too far, and I think it's still going too far for a number of people, mainly because of their inability to set boundaries.
At one point, I had to pay for my younger sister's tuition fee. And I didn't look at it as something that I was forced to do. I had to do it because I was not going to look at suffering in my presence while I can help. I love to be valued because of what I have done for myself and the other members of the community. I think that is wealth.
The thing is, if you're always coughing up money, you're actually not going to be able to progress because it's a lifetime commitment. Actually, I think set a budget of how much you can afford, how much you can give them, and how far you're willing to do it for. I think so, but I think it's going to take some time. And I think it's going to take us, which is the new generation coming up from like the 94s upwards, to change it.
It is definitely about breaking that cycle. We don't want to burden our children as well. We want to set them up for a great future. We want our kids to be the first generation that actually builds trust funds for their own kids.
All right, I hope you saw the video fine.
Yeah, no, we heard it loud and clear. Josh, are you still there?
Did you get the entire video? I'm not sure because my Zoom then rebooted just now.
The
I'm
whole
not
video,
sure if...
from start to finish, the entire thing.
All right. Okay, cool. That's great. All right. Thank you. So I'm gonna go back to the presentation and continue. I think the video kind of was it's a good. It was done by the BBC. It kind of shares a wide spectrum of views about black tax. You can see that there's that kind of, on the one hand, we see that it's a useful, helpful thing. On the one hand, there's this awareness that it can go far, it can become a burden, and sometimes, depending on one's circumstances, you can get to a point where you feel like you are giving more than you are capable of giving. You can feel like you're being taken advantage of. But the debate I think, will rage for years to come. There'll always be people who feel that it's a good thing, and why do we even call it a tax? And there'll be others who feel um, that it is a tax, it is a burden, and it's something that shouldn't be there. Um, the the net result, though, and the truth of it is that many people are under a lot of stress because of black tax. It's affecting the mental health of millions of people, mainly because we 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 don't earn much. A lot of, I mean, when you are fresh out of university, usually these days it's even hard to get a job that is at the level you need, as in that reflects the course you studied. It's hard to find a job in the first place, or one that is in the field you studied. It's hard to find a job that pays you well enough. Um, and even in the workplace, your chances of progressing, there's things like the gender pay gap, there's racism. So you have all these burdens, a meager salary, and then the need sometimes is much bigger than your financial ability. So what happens then is, either you don't give enough and you feel quite guilty for doing so, or you give a lot, but there's other consequences. You find yourself getting into debt, and creating financial hardship for yourself as a sacrifice to try support family. And APSA and also the Huffington Post did a lot of research on this and found that 87% of South Africans are under some kind of financial stress. And one of the leading causes of financial stress among Black people specifically is black tax. So then there is a need to kind of find a better way to manage black tax, because at this rate, yes, we are helping our families, but it feels like we are sometimes, or at least some of us, are killing ourselves in the process, while trying to do a good thing. So being a Christian, I think it's worthwhile to turn to the Bible and see what does the Bible say, um, about this topic. The Bible says in Proverbs 3, verse 27, and I'm gonna read this verse and then explore for a few minutes a few cases where one could say something similar to black tax was happening, in the Bible. The Bible says, this is Solomon speaking, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. One thing for sure is that the Bible is strongly advocates the idea that those who have should help those in need. And the Bible does something profound. It opens our perspective to more than just family. It says it's not just your family that's in need that you should help. I mean, if you look at this, it's anyone to whom it is due. Um, and a lot of what we see in the Bible is strong advocacy for the idea that what you have is not just for you to enjoy, but what you have is for you to also help others who are in need. Please give me a second. Apologies about that. There was a knock on the door. So I was saying, the Bible is strongly advocates very strongly for the idea that we should not only help family when they are in need, but we should also help others beyond our family. But the first case study I picked on is one that is family focused. This is the case of Joseph. Joseph is an interesting one because he had every reason not to help family. His brothers had sold him into slavery um, and left him for dead. They first left him for dead, then later sold him to slavery out of jealousy, and he finds himself sent to um, to be a slave in Egypt. But God is with him in Egypt. He rises through the ranks, not in an easy way. He's in jail at some point, but at some point, he finds himself in a position of power. And when he's in a position of power, he finds his family in a position of need. And so Joseph has every reason to turn his back to his brothers when they come looking for help. And you see this element a lot. I was watching a video of a lady who was speaking on YouTube saying she doesn't want to help her mother because the mother was not a responsible parent. So sometimes we feel that we should only help our family when they have earned the right to be helped. But we see the example of Joseph is different. Joseph looks at people that are needy, they are hungry, and they need food. But it's also people that treated him badly, people that sold him into slavery. But he still has the heart to help them. He still has the heart to pay his share of black tax. And he says, but God sent me ahead of you to preserve for him a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt. So Joseph really elevates the standard. He says, you don't help family because they deserve it. You don't help family because they were wonderful parents or wonderful siblings that treated you well. You help them because that's who you are. You help because God expects God expects it of you. Moving on, the next example is the story of the Good Samaritan. I didn't quote any of it, but I like the one line in the story. Who is my neighbor? The story of the Good Samaritan, we all know it well. The parable of the Good Samaritan. It is about this man who goes above and beyond for someone in need. He uses his resources to dress the wound, takes him to an inn, accommodates him at his expense, and even leaves money with the innkeeper to say, whatever this guy needs, I'm going to sacrifice to help him. And Jesus told that story to answer this question: who is my neighbor? And in my view, the same question could be you asked: who deserves? If you say I should help, who deserves my help? That's what the rich young ruler was trying to ask Jesus: who is my neighbor that I should love more than I love as I love myself? And Jesus effectively, through the story of the parable of the Good Samaritan, he's answering by saying, your neighbor is everyone who needs a neighbor at that point in time. And so he's expanding our vision and raising the bar far beyond saying you should support those who are close to you, support family. He's saying anyone who needs your help, when you are able to give that help, that person is your neighbor, and that person should be the beneficiary of your black text. Then we get to First John 3 verse 16. First John 3 verse 16. This is now the Apostle John speaking, and he says, "This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. So the Bible advocates very strongly for being kind. It advocates very strongly for being generous. It um, it advocates strongly for sacrificing for those who are in need. From the story of Joseph, we see that it's not about whether the person deserves our help. Even if the person doesn't deserve our help, the Bible still expects that we give help. From the story, from the parable, we have an expansion of the scope of people that deserve help. It's not just our immediate siblings, it's not just our extended family, but everyone that needs help. God says that is your neighbor, and you will love him as I have loved you. You will love him as you love yourself, even if it means sacrificing. It's a very high standard. It's a very high bar um, that the Bible has set, and it covers more than, way more than, way more than black text, way more than just supporting family. So what are we saying? What are we saying? I'm going to come back to the verse we read in Proverbs in a moment. But before doing that, effectively, we have our families. We have our families. They have needs and they have wants, and we have resources. Those of us who have been fortunate to have jobs in this jobless society, we have resources, but we don't have the same amount of resources. Some have much, some have little. And so our message about black text cannot be the same. I think this is the point I wanted to make um, in this slide. The message cannot be the same because one, the needs in our families are not the same. So some families only need luxuries, but other families do not even have the basic needs of everyday living. And then even in our pockets, there's different amounts of resources. Someone has nothing or very little, and they're struggling just to even get by themselves. And so that person might be feeling, I have nothing, but my family expects a miracle from me. They expect my support, even though with the salary I get, I'm not even able to get to the end of the month. Another person might say, no, I have a little bit, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough to cover the needs, or I have enough to cover the needs, but I don't have enough to cover the luxuries. Then on the other extreme, you have someone who actually has the resources. He has the resources, but he's asking himself, or she's asking herself, about whether they have they are giving too much. They're asking themselves about whether it's fair that the family depends on them so much. They're asking themselves about whether maybe they are being taken advantage of. So whatever we teach about black text needs to take cognizance of those differences. I believe that right now, as we are here gathered, there are people who need to step up. There are people who are not doing enough. Um, and at the same time, there are people who need to step down. There are people who are doing too much and need to pull back. And I think we all know ourselves. If you need to step up, you are someone who maybe is focused on themselves too much. Maybe you are too blind to the need around you. Maybe you've only decided that, there are people who say, no, I'll only help my mother, or I'll only help my little brother, but everyone else, I can't. So depending on where you are, you could be in that space where you need to step up, you need to see the need around you, and you need to do more because God expects it of you. At the same time, on the other extreme, there are people who are doing too much. There are people who if you have someone, for example, who's taking on debt just to support family, or someone who is ruining their finances to finance what is basically a luxury. That person needs to step down and cut back and reduce um, the level of support that they are giving. Which brings me back. I want to go back to the verse that we read. I did say that the Bible elevates the conversation. It expands our vision to say it's not just your family that you should be helping, it's many more people. But there's an important phrase at the end of Proverbs 3, verse 27. So going back to Proverbs 3, verse 27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do so. So that statement is quite well qualified, and it points to this simple principle of boundaries when it's in your power to do so. The Bible expects you to give, but the Bible also teaches you to set boundaries. When Paul speaks to the Corinthians about offerings, he says everyone should purpose in his heart what he should give. So there's something about you evaluating your means and knowing what is in your power and then setting boundaries based on that. That's what the Bible is advising us. So I want us to reflect a little bit because I believe that usually when someone is stressed out and suffering and feeling that they are drowning because of black tax, it's usually because of boundaries. It's because they are not setting boundaries correctly. And boundaries are independent of the means, meaning there are people who have the means, but they are being taken advantage of, and therefore for them black tax is too big a burden. But the problem is that they've not set boundaries. And there's also people who have little and not much and are not able to do much, but they are not able to establish boundaries to say, look, this is what I'm able to do and this is not what I'm able to do. So we need, as people, if I were to leave you with one thing today, it would be that learn to set boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. The Bible supports this. It says when it is in your power to do so. But by setting boundaries, you'll feel guilty. By setting boundaries, I mean being able to evaluate your budget, being able to evaluate your means and say, yes, it's my Christian duty to help, but this is how much I'm able to help. And then going back to your family and saying, yes, you have expenses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but based on my circumstances, I can help with number 1 and number 4. Maybe next year when things are better, I'll try help with number 3. Those are boundaries, but it comes with guilt. And sometimes our families can blackmail us and say, we want to live in luxury and let them suffer. That's why my first point is let go of the guilt. There's nothing you can do about it, but having guilt doesn't mean you are doing something wrong when you're setting boundaries. You're just being a responsible adult. The quotes that I put on the screen there from Terry Cole says, at first you will feel selfish. You will feel guilty or embarrassed when you set a boundary. Do it anyway. That's important. Do it anyway and tell yourself you have a right to self-care. Setting boundaries takes practice and determination. Don't let anxiety or low self-esteem prevent you from taking care of yourselves. The idea of setting boundaries is central to all relationships, or whether it's a friendship or a relationship with your boss at work, or a relationship with your spouse, or a relationship with your parents. Everything, all relationships need healthy boundaries. We sometimes imagine relationships to be perfect. Like if you say imagine a perfect relationship, we imagine people that are so close that there's no space between them. But that's not a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship has space in between because people are not identical. No matter how similar, even identical twins, there are things on which they differ. And so that space between the relationship is for each individual to explore the part of themselves that has nothing to do with that other person. So even the perfect relationship, because those people are different and they have aspects of themselves that are removed from the other person, that relationship needs space, whether it's a physical space or a space in terms of time, then I need time away from you, or a space in terms of topics we can discuss, where our conversation can go. We can talk about this, but not talk about that, or financial boundaries. And in this context of black tax, we're talking financial boundaries. And financial boundaries, like I say, is when you are able to say, I'm able to help with 1, 2, and 4, but I can't help with 3, 5, and 6. That's simply what it is. It does come with a feeling of guilt, but embrace the guilt. The just know that it doesn't mean you are doing something wrong. As long as your evaluation was honest, that what you are offering is definitely all you can offer. And even if God was in the room, you'd be able to say, look, these are my responsibilities. This is what I have left at the end of the month, and therefore this is what I can help. Yes, you wish you could help more, but have the conversation and set the boundary. And setting boundaries goes with this point, the ability to say no. We need to learn to say no. It's not easy. A lot of us are taught from a young age to avoid conflict, to avoid offending people. And we see our parents as authorities, and our parents see us as kids. And therefore, it's very hard sometimes to say no. But we need to learn to say no. And sometimes no doesn't mean to be rude or mean. Um, uh, it doesn't mean you have to be harsh. Say lantena man, you know. You in fact, when you are saying no, that's the time you need to be extra careful to assure the person you are saying no to that you still have their back, you still care about them. You are not saying no out of spite. You're not saying no because you're angry about something they did. You are saying no because of your circumstances. You've gone and checked your numbers, and this is how far you have to go, and you have to say no to some things. It's very hard to say no. It's painful, but to be a mature adult, we need to learn to say no. We need to speak up if you're not comfortable. Um, sit the parents down and tell them that these are the things that I'm not comfortable with in terms of my financial obligations. I did say we should remain respectful and kind. The fact that you are setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful, doesn't mean you have to shout. You need to put extra care to reassure those people that you're saying no to, that you still care about them and that you are really genuinely doing your best. Try to anticipate issues and manage expectations. This is very important. It's not good to, when the moment someone is asking, can you help us with X, it's a bit too late to say no. Ideally, you should foresee the needs. For example, as soon as you get a new job, for those of us who don't have jobs yet, it's better to go then to your parents and say, based on what I'm going to earn, I know there's needs at home. I can only help so far. Or if there's a funeral, don't wait till they've had a meeting and they've decided you're gonna buy the casket and the budget is 50,000. Rock up as soon as possible and say, I've pulled whatever I could find. I only have this much. That way, you've anticipated the issue, you've set expectations, and it becomes much easier rather than to wait till the request has come through and now it's a bit awkward because people are saying we depend on you. So be firm, stand up for yourself. Um, and I did say on a previous slide that families have needs and luxuries. The ideal approach is yes, we should help with the needs, but be careful when you're helping with luxuries. I believe that luxuries, obviously, I'm not saying don't ever give luxuries when you can afford, but luxuries are like it's a special thing. So they come, it's more like a surprise that hey, I had a good, maybe I got a bonus at work, therefore I'm gonna do this special thing for you, or I know you haven't had this nice thing for 3 months. I've been saving. Here it is. But for helping on a monthly basis, so the ideal case is you stick to the needs, and luxuries you only do when you are able to, and it comes as a nice surprise, you know. Um, but obviously, sometimes we are stuck in a space where even covering the needs is a challenge. But in the event that you're able to cover the needs, then you can visit luxuries every now and then. But I mean, if you're even struggling to cover the needs, then by default luxuries are off the table. But sometimes you need to evaluate for yourself because family will just say we want one, two, three, four. But when you look carefully, three is really a luxury. And so it's up to you to go back and say, but do you really need this? Maybe let's do this and this because they are needs. The luxuries will take care of when the money allows. Taking time to think, taking time to budget. This is quite important. We have this habit that if you have money in your pocket and someone asks for money, we want to give them on the spot. But you know what that does? It communicates to that person that you always have money available. And that's a very dangerous assumption to allow another person to have about you. Sometimes it's better to say, even if you have money in the pocket, chances are you had plans for that money. So when someone asks for cash, my tip is to say, let me sleep over it. Let me go check my budget. By just saying that, and then you can give them the next day, or maybe even if it's a few hours later. But what you've done is communicate that look, it's not like money is lying around and always ready to be squandered by anyone. It's more this person has a budget. This person he worked, he needs to go check that he can really afford, and so you're already communicating that it's not necessarily easy. The money is not easy come. And I actually like, and this is not for everyone. I like communicating the idea that I have a monthly budget. And therefore, if you need something from me, unless it's seriously urgent, it's got to wait for month end because then for month end, I'll have the budget for next month. Um, Again, it's simply a way of signaling to people that the money is not readily available. Because when you just pop it out, you may think you're being nice, but what you're doing is giving the impression that you can ask for more because there's a lot available. And then later on, you feel like the person is being selfish when they keep asking, when actually you gave them that impression that you always have money readily, readily available. Then the other point is empower, don't enable. By empowering, I mean try to spend money on things that empower the person. So spending money on education, for example, is good because you know that through education, that person will eventually reach some kind of financial independence or helping your parents. You know, these days um, the people are able to build rooms at the back of the house and rent them out. So spending money on such a thing, where then the parent will draw an income from that, or if you see that the parent has some skills in sales or something, helping them start a small business that they'll one give them pride, but two also reduce dependence on you. So you are when you are doing those things education, small business, etc. You are empowering. But when you're just spending on expenses, you are just an enabler, and you create dependence. And that's very dangerous. So as far as you can, especially in the case where you have very little and you have to choose carefully where you spend it, try stick to things that empower the person that you're supporting so that over time they become more and more independent. And that then brings us to the last point, which is setting timelines. So even if someone really needs your help and you're doing what you can, it's always good to set a time frame. Even if you intend to help indefinitely, it's very dangerous to just have an open-ended thing that says, I'm gonna give you X thousand a month forever. It's better to say, I'll do it for 6 months and then let's have a meeting after 6 months so we can reevaluate whether my finances are still okay, whether you're still in need. Setting timelines like that then allows you to then come back and say, hey, we did say we'll do this till the end of the year. Are you still in need to or should we maybe change something or stop the arrangement? So try to always set timelines um where where it's possible. But yeah, I mean, I think the key point here is let's set boundaries. Let's have honest, open family meetings where you come out and say, this is how much I'm able to help. And if the family really cares about you, if they really love you as we hope to, the Bible says love is kind. One is you need to be kind to them and help as much as you can. But they also need to be kind to you and know that you also have needs and you don't have unlimited needs. So a loving, caring family will always understand. Even though you may feel guilty, chances are when you open the conversation, as long as you're honest and not disrespectful, they will understand that your help can only get get this far. My final thoughts as I close, we've established that black text is biblical and that the Bible expands our view to say we should help more than just family. Um, Number two, black text has benefits. Some of us are beneficiaries of black text. I'm one such beneficiary. Number three, financial abuse is a thing. It's unfortunate, but some people are indeed being abused and blackmailed by their families, and a lot of people are suffering because of this in silence. Those people that are suffering financial abuse, the message about boundaries was for you. No one is gonna do it for you, but you need to get to this point where you really stand up for yourself and without being disrespectful, without being harsh, just explain to people this is how much I'm able to do. When I get a promotion, I'll do more. But for now, this is how much I'm able to do. Um, Black text, and that brings me to that next point. Black text needs to be managed proactively. It's not unkind to set boundaries. The other point, run your race. Don't compare yourself to others. We come from different families. Some people are getting help. I remember my wife made this point. She went for breakfast with one of the ladies she worked with, a white lady, and that lady was saying, this was in the mid 2000s, and they were both earning 11,000 rands a month. And the white lady was saying, hey, this salary is so small, so my dad sends me 10,000 to top it up. Meanwhile, my wife was sending half of her salary home to help the family. So I know things like social media encourage us to always be measuring ourselves, and we have these targets that so and so had a car by 30, so I must also have a car by 30. But the truth is, we run different races. Like I say, some people are receiving money from their family, whereas some of us are sending money to the same family. Some people, the family is fairly stable and doesn't need help. Some people, the family is in crisis and needs half the salary. So leave the people to run their races, focus on what you are building. Yes, maybe you feel you're falling behind, but maybe it will be worthwhile. It's a sacrifice you have to make. to get your family where it needs to get to. And importantly, and this is why I put a picture with my kids here, we need to be the last generation, guys. We need to be the last generation that supports their family. We can't put our kids in a place where they need to be paying our medical aid and buying us food when we are old. What does this mean? It means then we must be serious about financial planning, right? We need to be serious about making sure that we have that retirement. If you are working, that you are contributing to your retirement and you are not just cashing out every time you change jobs. You need to have that money saved up so that when the needs arise, you can cover anyone that whose funeral would require you to pop out money should ideally be on a policy that you know will pay out. We just need to put those things in place so that our kids don't carry unnecessary burdens when we are old or when we die. This also means very good budgeting, ensuring that we free ourselves up from debt because in 50 years time there's another meeting like this and it's our children talking about how they need to escape black tax because they are paying our rent and our medical aid. Um, so that's the presentation. I think I went over the time. I apologize for that. But yeah, I mean the key message is guys, let's set boundaries. I know it's hard, you feel bad, and your family might feel you being harsh, but it's very important for your own mental health and for ensuring that you maintain that healthy relationship with your family to set those boundaries. I hope this helped someone. Um, and I will now hand it back to our MC so we can have maybe some questions and a discussion.
Yeah, no. Thank you so very much. This definitely helped me. I don't know, man. I get the feeling you do keynotes. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What is keynotes?
Keynotes is when you are a speaker, the main guy. Well, it's an event. They invite you to come be the main
No,
speaker
not
in an
really.
event. Not really.
No, but my
Yeah,
my
no,
my job requires me to present maybe a
is
lot.
it?
Maybe that's what.
Yeah.
That's what. That's
No,
what.
no, the quality of the conversation says a lot. The presentation, that is, it says a lot, and therefore we are very grateful. We have learned a lot. We're just processing now. We're just having
Okay.
a brief moment of processing. I know they're gonna come just now to say their 2 cents here and there, but why maybe to kick off the conversation? This is what this conversation means to me. Ne? For me, moving forward with this conversation, as we're going to discuss in the next 30 minutes or to an hour, this means I'm not doing enough with the means and the resources that I have. I need to gun for more. I need to chase more wealth. I need to garner at more opportunities. I need to do more. For me, it's not about an element of complaining about, limitations or complaints about people who are expectant, families and all that. Just no. For me, the conversation is my money is not enough right now. I'm not making enough. Where can I outsource another opportunity to do more so that I can have a hell over law more money so that I can love a whole lot more to help with. So this is what this conversation is steering towards in my context. But it's not only about me. I just want us to have a conversation about what your thoughts are regarding the conversation on black tax. Do you have a negative connotation to it? Do you have a positive connotation to it? Or are you just neutral? You're just in the middle. You're like, usema parati. So I already have 3 hands. I'm going to take them in that very order. I'm going to take black tax. I know he's going to get the conversation heated. And then Skulumen is Kumbuzo and then speak to Mamo. For now, that's the first round of hands. Just the contributions, questions, comments, whatsoever. Black text guy, go ahead, my sire.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Brother Joss for the beautiful presentation. It couldn't have come at a timely period. A couple of things for me. The last point, I loved it. Financial planning. Let us be the last generation whereby our own children will not have to keep us. And the negative is, and I think you only see this when you become a parent and you're older and you're unable to take care of yourself financially. There's abuse in the family, courteous of the one who has the money. Our parents are unable to mete out discipline, to mete out correction to children that support them financially. They have a leeway of behavior. They can literally do anything. And funny enough, in the African culture, it's usually the youngest who's got the most money. Very funny, right? He literally runs that whole family. And if he's married, that means it's him running the family, and his wife pokes her nose into the family business and also runs everyone in the family. Because why? They all depend on them. So it's not just merely for survival. It's also for your dignity as a parent. That in your last days of life, you're not told words that will hurt you the most by the very child that you brought up into this world, merely because you can't be able to pay for yourself your rent or buy food or buy clothes or whatever the case could be. So it's a survival. Much as we love our kids, very sentimental about them, reality is in the face of money, you are very easily abusable. In the lack of money, when you don't have money, you're very vulnerable as a parent, regardless. And you can't shout at the top of your voice that I'm your mother, I'm your father. At that moment, you are the mother without the money. You are the hungry father at that particular moment. You have no power whatsoever. So it will be good for us as future parents, as current parents, to ensure that by the time we're at our old age, when the body can't work anymore, when no one can employ us anymore, we are able to take care of ourselves financially. So that if our kids get too big-headed, we know how to shut them up. We have our own money. We can take care of ourselves, right? We don't need them to take care of us. We've built our lives properly. That way it can help. Then secondly, a case in mind, thinking about a lot of things, eh? And this will be a question to everyone, and whoever cares to answer. In the face of partnership, a relationship, how then do we look into this whole thing, marriage, or especially a marriage relationship? You get married to a girl who comes from a family with a lot of money, right? In other words, the issue of black tax, her giving back to a parent is almost non-existent. The parents can take care of themselves. They have the money. Here's me, poor black tax guy, coming through here, landed a girl with a lot of money from a family or whatever the case could be, and I come from a very poor family. And now we're sitting at the table, we are working, and then now it's time to budget now to say, okay, what do we do now? And my family has needs, and not just needs. It's my mom, it's my dad, it's my sister's kids, and my sisters keep giving birth every month, like they're employed to do that. Every year, sorry, like they're employed to do that, and I'm taking care of these kids. How then do we balance the scheme of things, right? This is a girl that I'm married to, a woman that I'm married to, who has no history of giving money to a family, knows nothing about that, and feels that I am taking too much money from our side to give to my family. And I was brought up in that family, and I feel sorry for my sister's kids. Maybe my sister has died, or the orphans in the family, and these things are real, you know? There's my sister died, left 2, 3 kids here with my mom, and I need to take care. The father of those kids is not even there. How do we have that conversation? How do you balance it, especially from that context? And also, should we, in the choice of a partner, look into these things to say, you know what, Mina, I come from a family with no money, and I need to help my family throughout my whole life. This one comes from a family with a lot of money, where people don't ask for money from anyone. And so she doesn't understand this. In my choice of a partner, should I then look for another fellow black taxer like me, or I should go through it? And if we're going to have the conversation, how then do we have that particular conversation? Lastly, Lee, just to put it across then, at the end of the day, I think this is the strain. African culture can be a very abusive type of culture, especially to men. Mkwenyana, what's Mkwenyana in English? Son-in-law. Yes, the son-in-law is looked at as a massive savior to the family. to a point where the black family has looked into the son-in-law as a financial helper. Like indoda umkhwenyana ibheshi lomziki, like you are literally used everywhere. Like you are everything and everywhere. You're provided to the family, your current family, are provided to your wife's family, and all those kind of things. And this is how you find that a lot of men are so stressed. It's as if by getting married, you've adopted children. Children being your wife's family, your wife's sister's children, your wife's. It's just so much for an average black man who, again, because of systematic racism and the system itself, is not earning much to begin with. It's little, and in that little, everyone wants a piece of the little. That's why you find a lot of black men are so stressed, so frustrated with their own lives, and they have no progress at the end of the day, and they are looked at as failures, not just because they're not because they're not doing anything financially, but it's because they have got so many burdens. Life keeps passing you by when others are progressing, and you know that you could have made it and been at that particular part that others are at. I know Josh said we shouldn't compare, but let's not be realistic to a point where if you see others moving and you're not moving, and it's because of black text, the black man is in trouble. Please help us. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mkons. Thank you so much for those points. Yeah, no. Let's get ready to answer Mtandazo. He's feeling a bit well advised in terms of being stuck somewhere. In terms of family responsibilities, how do we approach that? That's a question for everyone, by the way. It's not entirely directed at Joss or myself or even his own mind. That's for everyone. Skumbuzo, I've asked to unmute you. Go ahead, sir.
Happy Sabbath, can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, no, thanks for the presentation. You know, I always felt a bit cringy when maybe you are in a family meeting or a church when someone says black text, we need a savior from black text. And you wonder, I just wonder, like, why is a person feel so irresponsible to their family? I mean, because now it's their turn to have money now, they are screaming, hey, black tax, black tax. I think this term is just bad because we are called to actually help where we can, not necessarily to go into debts and all that to help. No. My first point is to say, if you are a child and you are now working and you don't want to help your parents or your siblings or a member of your family because you don't want black tax, I think there's something wrong with you. At the same note, if you are a parent and you make your child to feel like they are obliged to pay you because they are your child, I think there's something wrong with you as a parent as well. Because, I mean, a normal parent that I know, they enjoy the success of their children and they don't do anything to jeopardize that. In fact, they can even kind of help you or advise you to use your money wisely and to invest. So if you're a parent and you make your child feel guilty if they haven't paid you this month, I think there's a problem there. There's really a problem there. My second point is more of a kind of question that now, since God is our Father, is tithe a black tax as well? Because clearly God wants that money somehow. We are told that if you don't return tithes and offerings, you will suffer. You are a thief, and all those bad names. So is tithe as well a black tax? And should it happen that this month your expenses are way above your limit, and when you include your black tax, it goes into your 10% or your 20% for tithe and offerings. Will God hold that against you? Yeah, thanks.
Right. Yeah. Is tithe black tax? Let that sink in a bit. All right. Let's to Skabakaba and then perhaps maybe ask if Joss has got some thoughts to share with us in light of those three comments so far. Skabakaba. Go on, sire. Skabakaba. Might be having a problem with network there for a minute. All right, so there might be chance in a round two. Yeah, sorry about that, leader. Let's take N Masugu in your stead, and then we'll just maybe see if Joss has got some thoughts to maybe perhaps share in light of the first round of comments. N Masugu, I've asked to unmute you.
Happy Sabbath to everyone. And thank you so much, my leader, for the powerful presentation. I, for one, I learned a lot and I really appreciate that. I think all of us, we agree on one thing, that we need to help where we can. We need to help, especially our families, those that are struggling. But my question comes, how do you make sure you don't create the sense of entitlement, especially from the siblings? You know, siblings, sometimes they've got that thing of saying, because our father taught you and you've got now a degree and you're working, you ought to take care of us at whatever expense or whatever situation. You ought to take care of us. Therefore, if you fail to do that, you are creating again some sort of resentment from the family, that this guy spent our father's money. They sent him to school. Now that he's got money, he can't, take care of us. Whereas you are in a genuine situation whereby you need to cover some other things that need money. And at that particular time, you can't take care of the siblings, and therefore you create a sense of resentment from the family. So how do you go about that? Because I believe all of us here agree that to so much, to whom so much is given, so much is required. We've got no doubt on that one. We can't argue. God expects us to help those around us who are struggling. But how do you then make sure that you don't create a sense of entitlement and at the same time, if you don't do that, people will start to hate you. Thank you, my lead.
Thank you so much, N Masugu. Go ahead, Joss.
All right. I think it'd be good to hear other people's views on these topics as well, but I'll give my 5 cents. Really interesting themes and topics. Mta, you raised two really, really critical dimensions. And I really appreciate that you brought them up. One being how breadwinners sometimes misbehave. The other, managing, I alluded it a little bit, the story, the marriage context of black tax. On the first one, this is really a critical point. I'm really grateful you brought it up, because yes, the talk kind of focused a lot on what we do, what families can do wrong, that they ask for too much, etc. But the truth is, there is something, they call it breadwinner syndrome. there's a lot of even jokes that go around about how even when the breadwinner is around, people can't comment. The one who doesn't contribute money is overlooked, not listened to, and doesn't have an opinion. People are even scared of eating because the moment you start eating, the breadwinner asks, why did you eat this and not eat that? That was for tomorrow. So we do misbehave. We, the givers, we misbehave a lot. We bully people and we bully our parents, and that needs to stop. I think we need to get to a level of maturity where our financial means is a help to the family and not a tool for us to have power. I've seen a lot of really terrible things happening, both on the two extremes. One being what is done by the breadwinner, and then on the other extreme, what is done to the unemployed one who is seen as a burden to the whole family. I mean, I can only appeal to the breadwinners that let's pull back. Let's pull back on that behavior, but keen to hear other people's views. The second one is marriage. This is a tough one. I wouldn't go as far as to say in choosing a marriage partner, choose someone um, who shares a similar burden or who understands your context. It's true that I see this as kind of part of a broader theme around cultural compatibility in marriage. The more you are from the same culture and you are raised in the same way and you have the same worldview, it follows that you'll have similar expectations. It doesn't mean there'll be other things that come up. That's the nature of marriage. There's no world where you like, because I married this way, I expect no challenges. There'll always be personality differences and worldview differences that come up. So it's true that if you come from different spectrums of black tax, you'll have different expectations. And if those expectations are not managed, they will create conflict. So I think it's critical to, one, be sensitive to those differences as you are sensitive to all other differences in how your partner was raised and how you were raised, where they come from, what they believe. You need to be sensitive to that. And when you see a major difference, ideally you should talk about it before. I mean, the reality of marriage is sometimes before we get married, we are so in love, and some of these differences come after the honeymoon. Then we're like, so that's what I married. So it won't be always possible, but if possible, try to clarify expectations, iron them out, as in come to your partner and say, I have these responsibilities at home, and have those mature conversations, ideally before marriage. Chances are you won't have them before marriage because you are too in love and it's too beautiful and roses. So maybe then after the honeymoon, when you wake up from that, you will need to sit down and talk and make compromises. Ideally, the one who is in a better place, the one whose parents don't expect anything, should compromise a bit more and understand that, my husband has these responsibilities. I know that sometimes it happens the other way, in that if I don't have responsibilities, I get irritated that my wife keeps sending money home. Ideally, like if you married the person you married, their burdens. And so you must help them carry that burden. Obviously, the tricky bit is where your partner has been taken advantage of. And I know Skumbuzo did make the point that, was it Skumbuzo? Someone made the point that, yes, it was Skumbuzo made the point that it would be shocking if you have cases where the parent is abusing the child, but this stuff happens. While researching for this topic, I saw some really shocking stories on YouTube where people were in therapy because their parents were blackmailing them, and using withdrawal of love to blackmail them into supporting them financially beyond their means. You know, people taking huge loans. There's a lady who she had her job demanded that she has a car, but she couldn't buy a car because the mother wanted her to build a house for the unemployed brother, like ridiculous things like that. So in that case, and you're married to such a person who needs to stand up for themselves, who needs to say no, obviously then you need a mature conversation with your partner to say, hey, you need to talk to your parents and set the right boundaries. So it comes back to communication in the marriage. I don't think it will be easy, the communication, because black tax is an emotional topic, and the different worldviews mean it will be hard to agree. But I think the sooner you communicate and push towards some kind of compromise, the better. Then maybe jumping very quickly, I got Skumbuzo's points. I actually share the view that the term is inappropriate, but I accept that, like I say, for some people, it's really a burden. I think whoever came up with the phrase black tax was expressing that frustration that I would have loved to be progressing in life, but now I have this cross to carry. Some of us carry it with pride. For some, it's painful and they're suffering. I think I would just be considerate. Like I say, for me, the black tax experience was positive. For someone else, it's a bit more painful and difficult. So I would be more, I think, yes, we do need to, while accepting that it's usually not a bad thing, just accept that for some people, it is like a really tough experience. I won't answer Skumbuzo's question about whether tithe is black tax. I will leave it to the audience. And then I'll jump then quickly to Mr. Masuku's comment about sense of entitlement. I think this is the hardest thing, especially with siblings, because yes, for some reason, every family always has this sibling who's coasting, who's just taking advantage, will never leave home, will never study, will never get a job, because they know that, you know, there's someone that they can lean on. And I made the point in my talk that you don't want to be an enabler. You don't want to be an enabler. It's very dangerous. You'd rather be an empowerer. So in my view, for that sibling, I would say, and this is something a position my wife and I took in both our extended families, will help anyone who wants to study. So we'll help parents, because parents, you know, sometimes need food, etc. So we'll help parents. But for the siblings and cousins, that layer, so the people in our age group and younger, will only help with education. And if you don't want to study, well, then good luck, because otherwise you create dependence, and that creates a problem for the person, because now you are taking away, they have no reason, nothing to get off the couch. And also it creates a problem for you, because you're going to have to help them forever. So I would be very careful to help people who could be helping themselves, who are not making the effort to help themselves. I think it's, in that case, you should really help efforts that empower that person, educate them. I think there you should sacrifice to educate them. If they have an eye for business, help them start a business. But if they're just sitting and waiting for you to send the next handout, that's where our boundaries, in my opinion, need to come in. So that's my comments on the questions and thoughts from Taz, Kumbuza, and Mr. Masuku. I think we should also get other people to share their thoughts.
Thank you so much, Saya. Let's hear what the other constituency is saying regarding tithe being black tax. I'm not going to answer it as well, but picking up on the enabler empower conversation in response to question number 1, Yaga Mtandazo, after he made the comment about arrogant people who start to make it and then they start to make the lives of their parents difficult. He asked the question, Guti, Now you meet a rich girlfriend, and somehow your sisters are popping up. They are baby making factories because they know good they've got a safe haven. So the enabler, empowerer concept in that regard, I just wanted to interject it there quickly, Guti. Ask yourself, Mtandazo, in that question, if it's personal to you, or just to answer the question in the broader term. Are you willing to be pulled down or raped to the floor by the ignorance of others? So this is where you ask yourself an important question, Guti. Am I going to allow myself to be repeatedly abused because I'm enabling a particular lifestyle? They go and they exercise whatever choices because they know the safe haven is there. So at that point, for me, I ask myself, Guti, what is it that is going to lock me down to the situation? So more often than not, in most cases, I always find the thing that locks me down. Is it a mutual grandparent within the home? Is it what is it that is key? If I can't find it, hard luck, like he was saying just now, Joss. If you can't find that thing that is an adequate responsibility for you, it's morally corrupt for you to ignore it. You cannot afford not to do it. If it's not there, hard luck for those who exercise poor decisions, thinking Yoguti they've got a safe haven. And we appreciate that example, Yoguti. You empower people through education. You empower them through education. If they don't want to be educated, hard luck to them. So we have to reach a point where we ask ourselves difficult questions. It says, am I going to put up with this? Up to which point? Or this is it. So the conversation continues. Any thoughts on what Mtandazo had asked regarding his viewpoints regarding a black tax, and what Ulona had asked as well, Uskumbuzo, about black tax, tithe. If you want to attempt to answer that, please give us your 2 cents. But at this point, and then Mamo. Let's ask to unmute to Skabakaba. Go ahead, sir. We keep losing Skabakaba. I don't know what the story is. Mamo, I've asked to unmute you. Go ahead. I've asked you to unmute you. Go ahead. You keep muting yourself. Just press only once, ne? I'm going to ask you to unmute you. Tick only once. Mamo. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the presentation. I'm not to answer Umta and Uskumbuzo, but I have a question to Brother Jos. When he was talking about him taking responsibility to take care of his sister when the husband passed on and the family, did he reach a point whereby he could feel that this is too much for me? And also, what was the motive that pushed him to help the family by that time? Was he pushed by saying, no, these guys have helped me, so I have no option, I just have to do it? Or he just did it out of love?
All right, I guess he noted that question. I guess he got that question. And then Skabakaba.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
There's also questions in the comments.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Skabakaba. Go ahead.
Yo, I've been struggling. Okay. Yeah, I've been so frustrated, but thanks to our brother for the presentation. I think it is well needed. But so what first I think I want to I want to respond to what this composer said first, in that I think we need not should I say what create a psychoanalysis of how people are feeling and somewhat say this is what we think about them, because I think that kind of like disallows us or disables us from understanding why people feel the way they feel about particular things. If you say, if you feel this particular way, then there's something wrong with you. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it enables us to get to the solutions that we need, because the feeling will not go away because somebody is feeling or something is either right or wrong with them. I was being I wanted to go to, I think, some of the things that Umtai said about feeling stuck, and saying that adulting is not easy. It is it is a real thing, and it is painful actually being an adult with responsibilities and things to do. I think as adults we can all concur here that it is not a nice thing having responsibilities that are never ending. We talk about the fact that for some of us maybe who do not own assets like your houses and stuff like that, and property, the pain of paying exorbitant amounts of rentals, of traveling, and I do not know what else, other things above that you have to take care of, like siblings, like, and parents, and stuff like that. The feeling does not go away because those people are your family. The feeling of being overwhelmed is a real feeling that comes whether or not you are taking care of your child, even children. In fact, that mothers who need kids also sometimes need breaks from kids. They need a break. Even though they wanted kids, they need a break. Meaning that a feeling of being overwhelmed does not necessarily speak to your position to say, if someone is my family, then I shouldn't be having any particular feelings. I shouldn't be feeling overwhelmed. I shouldn't be feeling burdened. The feeling is real. So I think what I'm trying to get at is the fact that the black text thing is a representation of our people as a black nation, and how that we have been so underprivileged, we have been so disadvantaged for a very long time, such that we have no continuity in terms of riches, continuity in terms of progress, right? As the brother rightly said, that in many families, if someone is a graduate now, they are the first person to graduate. They are the first person, and the responsibility of raising up the family to a greater standard or to a better place rests upon them. But what that means for that young person is that they have to put their life on hold for the maybe next 10 years or so, because they have to start afresh where their parents should have. When growing up and your parents do not own a house, then you realize you gotta either buy them a house or build them one. You have to put your own dreams on hold. And while doing this, things are not getting any easier. Right now, we're getting, an increase of basis points, every 2 weeks. And that means that by the time that person decides that they want to do things for themselves, things have become 10 times harder, right? So it really becomes a cycle of pain where you're like, okay, I understand that there's no other way around it. I'm a child and I have to do this because these are my family. I also want to come from a family that is well up. I wouldn't be wanting to be out here in the streets or in whatever places that I am at. And ekhaya it's like it's ruins, yabo. And we all want to come from emakhayeni athuthukile, yabo. So because of that, we will then obviously sacrifice and then work hard as we can, but in the process, really, we get eaten away by the fact that we are starting behind the starting line, even though we may say run your own race, you can still be late running your own race. Someone mentioned here something about this is the reason why we are not married. It's possible because uyoshada kanjani ushiya umuzi wakini ushiya abazali bakini bengenalutho uyokwakha, because then that means there are always going to be a responsibility. You're always going to look back and think, okay, I should have done that. So you cater for that, and in the process of these long relationships and in the time where we need instant relationships, you need to start and get to the point. You really run the risk of not really having a potential partner that will wait upon you while you work on your dreams. And this is fine, because this may also be their timeline where they're like, I'm not willing to wait for you for 3 years, you understand? Because I think I know where I am at, my family is developed, and I do not have these responsibilities. I feel like I'm also a part of your relationship. I mean, of your life. Our relationship matters. I matter too, and my couple. So it really does put a strain on a young person that is just trying to survive in an economy that is already difficult. More so if by, maybe let's say they are not even degreed, they are not even affording to go to school. So the moment they get a job, whatever amount or salary that they're getting, they are now taking care of their family. Should anything happen to that source of income, that means that they have to start afresh because they do not have things for themselves. They're taking care of other people, which is not wrong. So it's like hanging on by a tiny thread, hoping that God will protect this job until you are done doing what you're doing for your parents. Maybe if that's building a house or whatever, and then get to a point where you can take care of yourself. If bazalwane of going into a workplace and you see other kids that are coming from houses or families where their parents have houses, buying themselves the thing they want, whether it's the cars, wearing the clothes they want, but you cannot wear all these clothes. You have to bypass them because you are working on something else, right? It does not mean you're a bad person. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel like it's a burden. It is a burden. It is not caused by you. It is not caused maybe in some other situations by your parents. It's something that they also inherited in the system. And it so happens that you have been privileged at least to now have a job to take care of that. But while you do that, you must acknowledge that, look, if I could have things my own way, I would not go through this. I would really wish that I think it's Ntahu shared this, I don't know, because I was seeing this on his WhatsApp where he says, I hope that we as this generation now, we are the kids, we are the parents that are going to say, we do not want our kids to work backwards. We do not want our kids to start working and then think, I need to give myself 5 years to then work on my father's estate, on my mother's estate. We need to be at a point where we are providers for them in such a way that instead of starting to build a home, they know they have a home they can come to when the world out there is not kind. This also ties up with our choices right now. Are we having kids? We should, I'm not saying we should stop having kids, but this whole thing of the fact that we are going to continue to have families that have no structure. They have no property, hauna muzi, hauna moto, hauna business, haunani. You have 3 kids now already, and you are struggling to take care of them. And by the time you are now taking them to university, and that means now you're not working on yourself, you're not establishing yourself as a person. You are taking what maybe you should have used to establish yourself as a person to take care of them. And now you're going to say, I took care of you for the past 15, 16 years. Now it's your turn. Then they have to give back. For me, I think it's black text in the sense that it's working backward. You literally have to now start from way back there, fix the errors of the grandfathers if they've made bad choices, your parents' choices, and then you come to you. By the time you start with yourself, already you are competing with the fact that, okay, I'm 35 right now. I do not want to reach 40 without kids, because I'm wondering, if my kid is 15, how old am I? Am I 65? Am I still going to be around to take care of them when they still need me? You understand? So there's a whole lot of things involved, consequences that come up from this black text thing. However, I pray that God gives us the ability, amandla, and the power and the resources that allow us to break free financially, that we can be the generation that is able to then establish ourselves in such a manner that from going forward, they can say, Yabo mkhulu wami mina worked so hard. He had this and that and this and this and this and that. Therefore, I do not have to work backwards to try and buy houses for my siblings and parents because my father and my mother already did this for me, But otherwise, I really appreciate the lesson, and I think it comes at a time that it is needed. It's a timely message. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. That what a heartfelt analogy there from Muskabakaba. It's personal. Yazwagala, Kehl. Yazwagala. Thank you for those thoughts. We appreciate them. Yeah, it's challenging, man. It's challenging in a negative and in a positive way. It's challenging you to aim higher. It's challenging you, Moguti, looking back, the disadvantages that we've been exposed to as a Sizwe Sagantu, or as Africans, or so-called Black people, if you like. So let me pick up on the comments on the chats. I noted you, Black Text guy. I'm coming for you, sire. Many times as Blacks or Black folks, we have not been taught investments and also how to build businesses, né? And being aware of talents as well as collaborating without jealousy amongst ourselves. But then again, the PhD, pull him or her down syndrome, is there. And so we look at employment as the only means to secure the bag, which is sad to see when we don't know how to have generational wealth. Hence, we suffer this so-called Black tax. All right. There's another comment I saw quickly. Sorry about that. I just accidentally pressed something I shouldn't have. Where Utebogo Khoza was saying that Black tax is a heathen concept, in my opinion. It advocates for selfishness, be the best alone. Love is able to give when it is afforded an opportunity. All right. Let me just share one more comment and then Zunigas at the Black Text guy to give us an audio feed. 1 Timothy 5, verse 8. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Black Text guy, go ahead.
Can I just respond to one of the earlier questions?
Go
just
ahead,
before
sir.
Black Text guy comes in, there was a question from Mamwe. Sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation.
Mamwe, something like that.
Okay. So the question was about the story I shared of my sister. And thanks for raising the question. I think it is essential to give additional context there. How I ended up supporting her after her husband passed on. Did I do it out of love or out of a sense of duty? I wasn't actually even asked to do it. It's more, I think what happened, it's more my personal circumstances allowed me to help. I was young, I was single, and I didn't have a car, I didn't have debts. I was in my first job, second year of my first job, and I tried to take it slow in terms of getting cars and big financial commitments. So at the time, my income was bigger than my expenses. And what actually happened was, like I explained, soon after they got married with her husband, like any newly married couple, they took on a lot of expenses, moved to a new place, bought a car. And then when the husband, and they were going to share the costs. And then when the husband died, the family kind of didn't want her to keep the proceeds. So what happened then, I was on a call with her. She was telling me that, well, because she can't afford the house anymore and she wasn't allowed to keep the insurance payout, she's gonna move out with her son to a smaller place that she can afford. And I think had I not offered to help, this would have been fine. It's just that at the time I felt she had been through so much. I mean, to have your husband dying like 6 months after you got married, it was quite a heavy like toll on her. So then to be also moving out and trying to find a new place for you and your son, I had at the time, I just felt, look, I have the means and it would help her just give her a few more months to get back to her feet. What I appreciate is two things. One is that we agreed timelines. So it wasn't just helping indefinitely. So we agreed that I'll help you for 1 year. It's just so that you get your stuff back in order, and then I don't have to help you anymore. And the nice thing is, when the time had passed, she's the one that called me and said, thank you, you helped. I'm now ready to, she was going back to school. She was going to Medunsa, and her son was going to go stay with my dad. So there was a bit of maturity, and that's maturity we don't see always from people who are being helped, to say, I'm now okay. Please, you can now reduce or you can now remove the support. People sometimes just enjoy. So sometimes it depends on the type of person that you are helping. If you know that it's a sneaky person who will take advantage, it might be up to you to set boundaries. I also think, and this is important, if a similar situation came up now, when I'm married and I have 3 kids, it's a bit more complicated, right? So I would only give help, that type of help, like if it was really an exception or really an exceptional circumstance, and I would need to like really talk it out with my wife and make sure that we agree that yes, we will give this help, it will be this much and for this amount of time. Because it's very dangerous, such a thing. Like, it could end up being for long. You could find yourself unable to get out of it. And if you do it while married, it can cause a lot of resentment if your partner doesn't agree. So yeah, it just so happens at the time I was young, single, I had a bit of extra money, and I just offered to give some assistance. I think I did it out of love for my sister. She didn't expect it. None of my family members expected it. It just so happens that because I had extra money, I offered to help. If I hadn't offered, I think yes, she would have probably moved back to our hometown, maybe to stay with my dad for some time, which would have been okay. Which is, I think, sometimes we also forget. We think that if we don't help, things will fall apart. But sometimes, yes, if you help, it will go a long way. But it doesn't mean if you are not able to, then it's a crisis. Usually the person can make a plan B, which is not perfect, but like if you really can't help, then you really can't help. So yeah, that's my response on that. I really appreciated the comments from Skabakaba. Very, very insightful thoughts that you shared. So yeah, I think we can move on now.
Great stuff. Black Tech Sky, are you still here? Do you want to share some thoughts? This man had an afternoon engagement. How he managed to stay, I do not know. Oh, you're here?
Yes, I'm here, sir. I'm in church as I speak. So,
okay.
Yeah. Thank you to the comments. I probably want to give 1 or 2 of my last comments on this. At least the importance of the current parents to really have good financial planning. At least your kids have a place to go to when their life goes south. During COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs. And I know a couple of people who went back home. Like, I looked at it, I didn't lose my job, I didn't lose anything. But I said to myself, imagine if I did lose my job, which home would I go to, right? Well, some parents don't have homes at all. They're renting wherever they are. So it's important, again, I really emphasize this. I think the generation of our parents is done and dusted. They lost it along the way, financially maybe. Their fault, not their fault. There's another case to deal with. The point is, I think for all of us who are future parents, current parents, it is so important that you have your own things, not just for against your children, but having your own things protect yourself against everybody else. Maybe that's the obsession with attaining resources, because it becomes a form of survival, a shield to protect yourself against quite a lot of things, right? Because you're very vulnerable when you don't have anything. Secondly, I wanted to know how others are handling their black tax issues. Who is a successful, I think Joss has talked about his successful black tax story. He gave an idea, and why I'm asking this is because what ideas can we give to our parents? I think Ubusi said on the group there that let's teach them to fish and let's stop providing them with fish. So let's teach them to fish, right? So in that case, what ideas are working for you? All right, what success stories do you have? What can you share with us to say, hey, you know what? I did this with them and this worked. All right, maybe that's something that I could try. We don't need to reinvent the wheel to try and bring new ideas if there are already existing ideas that are working, right? To say, oh, you know what? I had a problem with my parents, like text my sisters, I did this, and it worked that way. Why I'm saying this is because the route for education can be pretty long and daunting and has no guarantee. You could teach a child for the next 10 years of their life, your sister's child or whatever, and really things don't really work out at the end of the day. So what else can we do in line with that to pull through? Then the other point would be, there was a question that was posed here. Someone said I should ask it. They went to my WhatsApp and said, can you please ask this question on my behalf? Is giving your girlfriend money a form of black tax? My word. The problem is we're dating hungry people. That's a problem right there. So when you're hungry, sometimes you don't even think well. So I feel honestly it is, and it can be a burden at times, especially when it's a girlfriend perfect. I don't think money issues should be anything to discuss with. Maybe here and there, but they're not major. I think marriage is really the crux of where the money should be discussed. So it's important for us to have that partnership. And how then, also as a question, how then can we help each other? Let's say you have a friend of yours, you have a partner of yours, or maybe girlfriend, boyfriend, because some are not married here. And you can see that they're struggling with this black text thing. How can we best advise and try and, turn the trajectory to a better level without necessarily cutting through and sounding like we want them to leave their family members stranded and all that? Then lastly, here's what I would then say. I feel like there must be a bit of Christian selfishness, if there's a term like that. It's not useful to be giving and there is no progress in it. And I say this with all understanding how humble a Christian should be. But I think Christianity is not a dumb religion. It's a very intelligent religion. There must be a bit of some selfishness. While I put this on my status right now, and someone texted me like, this is the reason why black men don't go anywhere. This black text thing, right? And here we are, growing up every day, tomorrow or one day older than today, getting so much frustrated and resentment to a point where if you lose your job, will the people that you have helped be able to do for you what you've done for them? Joss taught me something, that we do it because it is out of us. But I also want to add it further on that sometimes it is important to reciprocate. Hence, God says we must say, must be grateful, must be thankful, to reciprocate. Will the people that you are helping right now be able, when you're in the same situation always, be able to help you in that particular situation of yours, right? That's something that people need to consider. We are helping people that at the end of the day, they might not help us. And that may cause resentment to say, oh, but you know what, when it was my turn, I helped you, I did this and that, and now I'm at this position. People are not helping me, they just watch. That's how families have squabbles and fights and all that because of expectation to say, but I did something for you, which was a question that was asked to say, okay, when Joss had helped or when whoever helped, was it out of love or out of obligation? I mean, I think sometimes it's out of both, and there's nothing wrong with being like that. That if you're brought up by a certain family member, whether it's your mother, father, or whatever the case could be, then there's that obligation to kind of help, especially when they're down and out. So we must be able also not to ascertain it, to say, are we doing things for people that can be able to do things for us? Well, it would be sad if they can't do things for us, but I think also there must be a certain level of selfishness that comes with this whole idea. Otherwise, you will never get to do anything in your life. All you have done is be born, work, pay bills, and die. That's all you ever did. Never enjoyed your life at any particular moment, never brought what you want. You even feel guilty for buying things. I went through a period in my life where you'd feel guilty for buying ice cream. For ukuthenga McFlurry, boy. Like McFlurry, ntwana. Because you think of it when you want to buy it, you're like, this could go into this. You want to buy yourself a nice pair of Tekkies, $2,000. You start calculating it as in 2000 might not work. So let me just keep this. Let me buy a small street. I'm fake Tekkies that are like 300 rands. Then 1.7, I distribute it. You end up, and I remember I used to have a partner who would say to me, you live like someone who doesn't work. And that's because you become so obsessed with helping people to a point where you forget about yourself and about your life. So it's important at any particular point to have that form of selfishness, to say, okay, this time I want to really look into myself and try and pull this through. And I think Joss put it across quite well. And then that way, at least you can save them and save yourself. The last thing is, I think in an airplane, when there is a crash, one of the first things I think that they tell you before the airplane takes off is, in case there's a crash, wear your oxygen mask first. Your own oxygen mask, wear it first. Then you can help others. Can't be running around trying to put oxygen masks into other people when you don't have one. You run out of oxygen and die. So I think critically also in that same aspect, wear your oxygen mask first. In the context of black text, wear your own oxygen mask. Then when you have it, then you have capacity to try and say, listen, I'm breathing in properly here and there. Let me try and put this one on you and see if you can try and breathe in properly from that perspective. It will help us a lot. And once it's covered well, we'll be able to help not just our family members, but the greater community that we live in. We can do charity things for a lot of people, as long as we are healthy in maybe trying to curb this whole black texting at the best way possible. The trajectory of this conversation, from what I'm seeing, as my lastest point, is that we're all agreeing that we should help those that are in need, as it is in our power to do so. But I think it's the how of it, it's the when of it, it's the how long of it that we've been talking about. And thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you, Mkonzi. Thank you, Joss, and thank you, everybody else.
Thank you so much, Kel. Thank you for those thoughts. So, I'll go back to where I started. This conversation for me, it says, my pool is too small. My pool has to be Bobby Axelrod big, if you know what I mean. If you know, you know. If you don't, we'll talk another day. So my pool is very small. Thought I could have a massive, humongous, whale, ocean-sized pool. That's what I'm gunning for. So I just wanted to entertain a question. We are winding down. The expectation is we should be done in the next 7 minutes. 5 o'clock, we should be done. That includes giving to the two co-pilots, Uskabakaba and Skumbuzo, to land the plane for us. That includes me touching on Betty's comment and giving Brother Joss a quick chance to give us deliverables and wrap it up for us. So we are done with this conversation. It's been a fruitful, beautiful one. But here's Betty's thoughts. So if perhaps maybe Skabakaba and even Joss or Skumbuzo come in, they could also entertain this. Betty, you are the last comment I'm reading on the chat. How do we deal with relatives that are being reckless with their lives? There are two comments that had a similar tone further up in the chats, which was it doesn't matter, but similar comment. For example, you are a firstborn, but because you have done well, your parents continue to have children with no plan, simply because you can take care. So essentially, you became single parents. Ne? And then it continues to say, when your child is your youngest sister, or brother, who is 30 years younger than you? And another hypothetical question, another hypothetical situation. You are in a profession, people know your income. So now they calculate for you and they tell you, since you earn 100K, right, it will be reasonable for you to give us 20,000 or 2,000 a month. How do we navigate this? So that's the parting shot in terms of the chats. Let's entertain that question. I'm just going to give the two co-pilots. Uskabakaba, I know, is going to respond to Mta's comments. I'm just going to give you Skabakaba and Skumbuzo. You guys are lending it nicely for us. And then from Lapo, Joss, you are wrapping it up for us, my leader. Just give us deliverables, send us packing, tell us this is why we were here, and it would make us very happy if you were to take lesson 1, 2, 3 and take it with you and be a blessing to other people. And maybe if I could just say before I close off, because I want you guys to be the last to say anything. There's hope, Bazalwan. It may seem dark, it may seem gloomy, it may seem, gray, but there is a silver lining. There is hope. For as long as we're still living, for as long as we're still hoping, having a positive attitude for a better tomorrow, doing little deposits that we can today to shape our tomorrow. Napoleon Hill says that, show me what you're doing with your time and your money today. I will tell you where you will be in the next 10 years. Even Jim Rohn says that. So there's hope. There's hope. Just as long as we hang on to the positive aspects of our pursuits, we become compassionate with people that we live with, no matter what their struggles are. There's hope. We'll come all right one day. Skabakaba, you are first, Skumbuzo, and then Josh will wrap it up for us with the deliverables and all. Thank you so much, Skaba.
Sure. I think I'll try and be short. I think to be straightforward, because my battery is dying anyway, I've just been load sharing now. We cannot give what we don't have. We need to take care of ourselves. In fact, I read something recently and it hit me hard, where it said, treat yourself with the same zeal with which you treat others, especially the ones you feel you have to take care of. Like the cushion that you want to put behind them to make life comfortable, do that for yourself as well. Do not neglect yourself in the situation. Do not stop taking care of yourself. Buy yourself that sneaker and not feel guilty about it. Every now and again you meet people who are like, yo, dude, and this is a protest, a self-protest of saying, no, yeah, but let me buy myself this meal, let me buy myself the sneaker, let me buy myself this thing, because hey, but I'm the one slaving away 9 hours, because most of us, we really slave away and neglect ourselves, in the situation. There was a young lady who was writing a story of her mom who kept on asking for money, and she said, "Mama ngina mali, a loan to build a house." And the mom was like, "But there's no one who said we should build this house," because in the back of our minds as young people, we this thing has become such an obligation that we guilt trip ourselves so much that if we do it when even it's not needed, we feel guilty. I think we do want to provide and everything, but we need to take care of ourselves. That's number one. Yeah, and then to Betty, I think we need to have hard conversations with our parents, right? I think we need to have to have a serious talk and say, look, I have my own dreams too. Yeah, but I have my own life. Primarily, yes, I'm very willing to help the family, but I'm not gonna expand myself beyond what I can, so that you guys can get what you want. In fact, there's no one, even your parents should never decide for you how much you should be giving them based on the fact of that they know how much you're getting paid. That's like messed up. Like that's wrong, because You have your own dreams, you have your own life. Let's say, like, as a young lady, you want to travel and see the world. How do you get to do that? You want to put your savings aside, you want to invest, then here someone comes and tells you there are some things in your life that are not important, put them aside, and just, it's not correct. We need to have those conversations, as the brother said. We need to have a talk and say, look, mom, I'm not going to do this. I'm only going to do this for this long, with how much? And lena enye ngicela ngibuze yona, because I think I'm also contributing here to a large degree, and I'm taking care of the things that I feel we should be taking care of. You know what I'm saying? And I'm only doing this nakona towards my as I can afford it. And the other thing is that you need to upskill yourself even as you help others. You need to get better. You need to increase your source and the money. I mean, the source from where you're drawing your money. You need to increase that if you want to help, because if you are, say, getting paid like 5 grand, and every time you take all the money you receive and send it to whosoever, that means you never get time to do a short course. You can never get a license. You don't upskill yourself in any way. You have no life. You don't go out. You don't do anything. You're just this shell living. So you need to really say, even though I'm going to help you, there's going to be a certain amount of money that I'm not going to give to you, not because I'm using it, but because I'm putting it aside, so that I have a better way of helping. I'm helping from a positive, source instead of a negative one, because the fact that we spend everything is the reason why we get depressed and come up with terms like black tax, because we feel the pain of mismanaging of how we're doing this whole thing. So I think for me, that's just about it. And that, as Umtai said, how can we help? I think we really need to collab in terms of business exploits, if we can, if they can be made available, if we can, put our heads together, so that we can have more than one streams of income, right? So we can show each other places where we can put our money and have it working for us, so that we do not feel like we have to work for each and every penny, so we can have those secondary hustles. I think we can find out. I was privileged not so long ago to have found one that did not last long, but I was privileged for that one time that I did, where I invested like 2K. I got myself 3K back in a space of 2 months, and that was poultry chicken. It was a secondary hustle. So I'm saying that for the time, I really felt hopeful. It's okay. At least now I can comfortably move and say, I'm taking care of my family. I'm also taking care of myself as a person, and looking forward to my dreams. So if we can help each other along those avenues, we can really try and alleviate and lessen the burden that we're feeling around this black tax thing. Yeah, that's all from me.
Word. Thank you so much, Vitch. Thank you so much. Skumbuzo, you're the last word.
Okay, thank you. I've got 2 things. The first one is to say we should learn to invest in people. At the end of it all, should you get privileged with all the money in the world, you realize that you actually don't need the money. You need people, and you need things that the money can bring you. And the best thing you can do for yourself when you get money is to invest in people. Preferably for those who are still studying, empower them, so that like when they also get to an adult stage, they won't text you. They will be able to stand for themselves and to support their families. And also they will thank you that you are a good aunt or uncle or whatever. But my point is to say, invest in people. You should find pleasure in that. Even when you look at God as well, he invested in us. He actually decided to lose one son in order to gain more than 144,000 people in heaven. So we must learn to invest in people. I think we should somehow have a lesson on that, how to invest in people, how to have a generational thinking instead of myopic thinking. That that the money that you have now, it must last you for generations. And how do you do that? One of the ways is to invest in people around you. The second thing, we have a problem as especially Black people. We have a problem. The first problem is that Black people are being taught not to believe in family. The greatest enemy of a Black family is a Black person. We have terms like men are dogs. When you look at people who make that term to trend are Black people, Black women. They are kind of trained to hate a Black man. When a Black man, when he gets the money, he's also trained to use that money to sleep with women or use women anyhow. So we no longer have that unity as a Black person. I'm not saying this in a racist way, but I'm saying we have that problem that we don't have the unity. I saw I was actually, before I owned my own company. I worked for this company. Now there was this young boy who came, a white person, came in. They asked me to teach him all these electrical things. We were doing some house chopping and electrical. I was training him, but not a lot, because I felt like they want him to take over. So I was actually giving him some trainings here and there. And then after 6 months, the boss was like, I'm going overseas, so I'm leaving my son. That's when we discover that that's his son. I'm leaving my son in charge. He's the one who was going to take over. But he was like, I am the manager. The son is in charge. Whatever I do, I must report to him. And that's when I quit. But now that we're talking about this, I realize that no, these people, they know how to generational think, that like the business that we're having here, it must continue and sustain the family. I was looking at the Indians as well. They major in family businesses more than in individual professions, but they major in family businesses. Black people don't have. Once you include your Black family, your family in your business, you are assured that it's going to fail. So the problem is how we think as Black people. We have a problem on the thinking way. We are all myopic thinking, to a point where if I become a breadwinner, I'll start ordering people around because badla mina, babosha mina, bagqoka mina, and and like, should one of those children that you are giving them that attitude also get successful, that child also will start treating others that way. At the end of the day, we have a family that hates each other because they are successful. You see? So we have a problem of thinking. We should start as a black nation to think generational way, and also to try to bring unity among ourselves so that we can go even further. And when you look at even Emakasi, we don't have trees in the locations, in the townships. But like suburbs in white people, there are trees. You would wonder what's happening. It seems as if the government wants Black people not to learn how to plant a tree, so that the generations to come, they will have to benefit from that tree. But like in the suburbs, they have a lot of trees that side. So my point is to say we have a problem of how we think as Black people. We should stop thinking in a myopic way and start thinking generational. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mfowethu. Thank you so much. Joss, please kindly land it for us, sir.
All right, I really think the gentleman gave some profound summaries. I really, really appreciated the comments. I learned a lot myself from them. So maybe my closing remarks will maybe be largely rehashing some of the comments, especially from Skabakaba. The other one who commented a lot, Skumbuzo, and the black text guy. I mean, I guess if your name is the black text guy, you will obviously share a lot of wisdom on black tech. So not to exclude the others, I appreciated the comments, but I noted those three as having done the most volume and a lot of interesting insights. So maybe to rehash the points, I liked the point about taking care of yourself. I think the black text guy made, or someone else made the point about an analogy using the plane, that first you put your face, your oxygen mask, and then you help others. We feel a lot of guilt taking care of ourselves. And yet, if you go to any therapist, and they point this out a lot in men, that men, our mindset is so much on duty that we neglect self. And then we are surprised when we always feel stressed and have a lot of anxiety and are a bit struggling with mental health problems. Usually those mental health problems can be brought down to lack of self-care. So obviously you can't overdo it, and you need a lot of wisdom to know that you're now buying yourself too many sneakers or buying yourself too much ice cream. But a lot of people are suffering because we are so committed to duty. I think someone made the comment that they were scared of even buying a McFlurry. You know, once you are scared of doing something you are willing to do for someone else, you know that you're not doing enough self-care. So let's do the self-care. It's good for our mental health, which then puts us in a better place to continue supporting others. I noted the question, and it was well responded to, about the 2,000. The person was saying the family is asking, well, you earn this much. Why don't you give us this much? I'm noting it because that's an example of violated boundaries. So that family is, if your family is doing that, feeling that they can tell you how much you can afford, they are treating you like a child and they are violating your boundaries. So it's very, very important. It's not about then trying to explain that, no, actually, you need to go to the heart of that issue and highlight the fact that, one, I'm an adult. If I want to tell you how much I earn, I'll tell you. If I don't tell you, I didn't tell you, therefore you don't know. Even if you knew, it's me who will do my budget and tell you how much I can afford. When you were a child and you were 15 years old, then your parents had a right to say, you have 10 rands, why don't you spend 3 rands on this? But when you are an adult, your parents need to respect that. And if they don't, it's up to you to assert. So the need for those respectful but firm conversations and honest conversations is very high. My closing remark is, I guess there are two groups of people, and that was always my difficulty when raising this topic. Like I said, there are people who need to be told, you are too selfish, you are neglecting your family, you're not doing enough, step up. You can't ignore the suffering in your family. There are people who are so committed to their careers, to their own climbing the ladder, that they neglect their family. And the message to those people, step up. People can't go hungry in front of you. And you can't hide behind, oh no, this is black text, while you are not neglecting your family and it's in your power. So that's the first group of people. And you know yourself if you're in that group of people. My message to you is step up. And then there's the other group of people who are taking loans and breaking themselves, the people who are scared of eating McFlurry because they need to support family. For them, the message is the opposite. You need to step down and remember yourself, that just as you are being kind to family, you also need to be kind to yourself. And also family needs to be kind to you and patient with you. And they need to want your success so much that they give you the space to also invest in yourself. So I can't decide who's in either group. I think it's up to all of us to decide where we are. Do I need to step up and do more? Or do I need to have those hard conversations and start setting boundaries? And if you know that people are violating your boundaries, if you know that people throw tantrums and use emotional blackmailing to try make you release your money, then you know that your boundaries are being violated. Plan an honest but kind conversation, a respectful conversation where you tell people what you want. They've always been telling you what they want every day, every month. They tell you what they want. Now we need that meeting where you tell them that this is what I want. This is what I'm able to do. And you don't have to apologize. You don't even have to explain yourself. You just say, this is how much I'm able to help. When I can do more, I'll come back to you. But you need that courage to set those boundaries. Thank you very much. I really appreciated the time here. I feel like it was fruitful as a discussion, and I learned a lot from all of you, from reading the comments in the chats, and also from listening to your comments. So thank you for that, and thank you for the invitation. Back to you, sir.
Josh, we are so grateful for you honoring the invitation. We are grateful to, I don't know who locked you down. I think it was Noma Kabiso. We are grateful for her locking you down. This was a beautiful conversation. One of those beautiful conversations. The Black Text guy, he's one of our own. He's one of the founders of the platform. So it's not surprising that he's the most vocal. But with that being said, even in speaking for him as well, we are so grateful. We can't express it enough. So I just want to ask Masugu and Masugu, Baba, can you just close for us in prayer, please, beloved? I've asked to unmute you. And Masugu? Okay, you probably could have left maybe the conversation. Gladwell, Ben, please, boy.
Okay, let us pray. Precious, most kind Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for all your mercies and for being with us throughout the whole day, for great, incredible conversations that we've had right now. I pray and hope for the families and people that have been in this group, and that, dear Lord, you may extend in all places, that we may learn and understand through your Spirit what you desire for us at the expected end. In all your grace and mercy, Father, may we appreciate everything that you do for us in our lives. And even as you bless us, may we not part without your Spirit being with us. This we ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen and amen and amen. So at this point, I'm just going to stop the